Hey everyone, it's Kevin, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about overeating disorders, what they are, and what you can do about it. If you want to control what you eat and control your body, then hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. And don't forget to check out my free 7-day challenge, Stop Overeating in 7 days. And if you want to speak with me personally, there is also a link below. Let's get to it. What is the definition of overeating? I like to call overeating the ugly little brother of binge eating. I've talked about binge eating in previous videos, and there's a lot of content about that. Binge eating, you kind of know what it is. You're eating a large volume of food beyond what you need to the point of physical discomfort. Overeating is eating more, but it's a little less, and I'm gonna make a distinction right now. The difference between overeating and binge eating to me is two things: state of mind and also the load. When you binge eat, you feel really motivated to eat, you're excited, you're anticipating that rush of salt, sugar, and fat in your head. You can't think about anything else, you're not focused, you're moving really fast. A big difference between binge eating and overeating is that you intend to eat well when you overeat, but then something happens, you get carried away, you eat one cookie, then two cookies, and three, you go back for seconds, but your intentions were good. When you binge eat, you plan a binge. You knew ahead of time that you were going to binge because you were really motivated to do that. The other difference is the load. Obviously, when you're binge eating, you're eating a lot. When you're overeat, you're not eating as much. It's just more than what you expected or more than what you wanted. My own personal definition was 5,000. So if I ate more than 5,000 calories, estimated of course, that was a binge. If I ate less than that, then it was overeating. It was a very arbitrary distinction, but I had to have some sort of cutoff. Everybody's going to be different, but it's kind of like pornography. You know it when you see it. You don't have to describe it. You don't have to have a perfect exact definition, but you kind of know it when you see it. And when you binge, you kind of know when you've binged. How common is overeating or overeating disorders? I would guess in the millions. We live in a world where there's a lot of stimuli. We have neon signs, we have advertisements, billboards, we have new foods, we have TV. Watch a football game. If you watch a football game or any sporting event, half the commercials are for food. It's soda, it's pizza, it's hot dogs, it's fast food, some sort of restaurant, buffalo wings, whatever. We're always getting a message to consume more. There's nothing in the environment that's telling us to eat less. So we live in a very obesogenic environment. It's also very easy to overeat. We have 24/7 grocery stores, we have gas stations, convenience stores, we have restaurants everywhere. Now you have apps on your phone where you can order the food and it brings it straight to you. I don't have reliable statistics on this, but that's just my guess. I had the disorder. There are other people online who have it. There are entire Facebook groups for it. So I imagine it's a pretty common problem because our brains are not hardwired for this environment. It's hardwired for scarcity. And when our brains think food is scarce, but it's not, and we get this huge meal, it's programmed to eat a lot because it doesn't know when that next meal is coming. What are some common behaviors of overeating disorders? It's eating past the point of satisfaction. There's also a lot of guilt, like you feel guilty about doing it, you feel bad afterwards, you feel like you've done something wrong. You're also distracted when you do it. You're very rushed. You're not thinking about it. You're on autopilot. You're probably watching some sort of entertainment while you're doing it. You're not being mindful. You're not really tasting anything. And there's also some compensatory behavior, like you're gonna exercise compulsively, you're gonna run an extra mile or whatever, or you tell yourself that you're gonna fast tomorrow, or you're gonna find some way to pay penance. What are causes and triggers of overeating disorders? I think there's several. I think one is genetics. I think some people are predisposed to it. Unfortunately, I think some people just experience a greater reward when they eat or when they see food. I think it's just luck of the draw. Some people have overeating disorders from the time they're kids. They just get a lot of enjoyment from eating, especially eating stuff that has a lot of salt, a lot of fat, and a lot of sugar. Then there's the childhood environment. If you grow up in an environment where there's always a reason to eat, there's always a party, then you associate eating with pleasant feelings. And a lot of times that's why people are eating. They're not really eating because they want to eat. They're eating because they are looking for some sensation, some feeling. They're changing their emotional state with food. And then there's also the big elephant, there's dieting. So dieting is a huge problem. If you go on a diet, you're way more likely to develop an eating disorder, including overeating disorders. If you go on a diet, you're telling your brain that food is really scarce, and it elicits survival mechanisms. Dieting is actually seen as a threat to your brain, so in order to protect you, it motivates you to seek out food, especially the stuff that's really high in calories. This is the danger of processed food. Processed food isn't designed to satiate you, it's designed to make you eat more. And it's deliberately designed to create the maximum effect in your brain. And when you experience that level of reward, then your brain wants you to do it more. So what are the three main causes? There's home environment, then there's genetics, and then there's dieting. I would also include in this the current environment we live in, where we are constantly encouraged to eat more, advertisements and restaurants and new products. Also, technology makes it very easy to access a lot of food with very minimal effort. What do you do about overeating disorders? This is probably why you're watching this video. There are several things that you can do. You can get therapy, but that's kind of expensive. Inpatient rehab is out of the question for most people. You can do Overeaters Anonymous. I've heard mixed reviews about it. I'm not sure how much that helps, because you're still going to be in the same environment and you have to change your response. So when you get a cue, you get a craving. And when you get a craving, you have to respond to that craving. You can either say no or you can say yes. And then there's the reward. Now here's the thing. The only thing you can really control is the response. You can't control the cue. You can't get rid of the craving either. This is something you need to understand. Cravings originate in the brain. They are designed to make us take action, to move, to seek that food, make us do something. That's why cravings are uncomfortable, because the craving wants us to perform a specific action, which is, get some food or whatever. And I think a lot of times it's really hard to stop overeating because that craving is so uncomfortable, and the easiest way to get rid of it is to eat something, right? It's very expedient. We're not really seeking the food itself, we're seeking the relief from the craving. So cravings are a good thing because they make us do things that we should do for survival. The problem is cravings can get out of control, and when they get out of control, then you are hurting yourself. You're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. I think another cause of overeating disorders is the reward value of the food that we eat. I mean, the food that we eat today is very easy to overconsume. It is deliberately manufactured in a way to make you consume more. That's why food companies spend millions and millions of dollars creating the next products. They employ chemists and scientists to come up with these new concoctions, and they're looking for that bliss point. The bliss point is that perfect combination of salt, sugar, and fat that makes your brain light up. And when you eat something and it tastes really good and it has a good texture and it creates a positive feeling, your brain records that, it encodes it, and it motivates you to consume it more. So when you consume potato chips and you feel good, you have that rush of endorphins, and then your brain says, potato chips, it releases endorphins, it makes us feel good, let's consume more of it. And that's where cravings start. Why are overeating disorders so hard to break? Because our brains don't like to change. Our brains like the habits that we have. Our brains like the status quo. Our brains like to do things the way we've always been doing it. And our brains like pleasure. Okay, we like to consume things that make us feel good. That's why people like chocolate and red wine and movies and social time and alcohol and food. Our brains resist change because it wants to keep getting that hit. It doesn't want to stop. I think a lot of times people who have overeating disorders are thinking, how am I going to cope? What am I going to do without this? What am I going to do without this rush of salt, sugar, and fat? Where am I going to get my pleasure? What am I going to do in my free time? There's this fear, and I had this too, this fear of missing out. I was thinking, what would my life be like if I didn't do this? What am I going to do with all that downtime? It was a total fear, because the food, the disorder, and the hope of recovery, it filled this void in my life. I hated doing it, but I also liked the struggle, and I also liked the promise of recovery. The whole cycle was addictive, and it was really destructive. Another answer to overeating disorders is awareness. You need to be aware of the cues. What feelings do you feel before you overeat? What environment are you in? What time of day? When do you do it? Who are you with? What kind of foods are you overeating? And then start to pay attention to the cues and the cravings that you get, and then pay attention to the responses, and also consider alternative responses. For me, my biggest problem was coming home after work and then I had all that free time. What am I going to do? Why don't I go get some fast food? Why don't I go get some ice cream? So what made it so hard to stop was, what am I going to do in that free time? What am I going to do without all the pleasure? What am I going to do without that rush of endorphins? Thing is, there's no choice. You have to change. You can't do this forever, and the sooner you stop, the better. But once I became aware of what I was doing, I became aware of the thoughts and the feelings and the rationale for what I was doing. That made it a lot easier to stop. But it starts with self-awareness. I found that willpower wasn't a good solution because I only have so much willpower and I couldn't use willpower 24 hours a day. Willpower is overrated, self-awareness is not. And finally, what are the effects of overeating? I think there's two categories. There's physical and there's emotional. So the physical, obviously, there's the digestive problems, there's the bloating, there's the physical discomfort. I think that's actually not that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad. I think what's worse is the emotional part. It's the guilt, it's the anxiety, it's the number on the scale is going up. Your clothes don't fit, you don't look good, you can't do things that you once did, you feel out of control. I think that's the worst part. It's this feeling of being out of control. You're not really controlling what you're doing. It's kind of scary. It feels like there's a virus in your head that's making you do things that you don't want to do. Hope you found this video educational and entertaining. Let me know in the comments below what you're going to do and what your biggest challenge is. If you enjoyed this video, then I'm sure you'll enjoy some of the other videos that you see on the screen, and I'll see you there.